What would you say if I told you that I turned down a job interview for a company making nearly $200,000 per year? Most people would say you're crazy. And that's what a lot of my friends and colleagues told me after I told them that I walked away from taking an interview with a company that was offering around $100 per hour. Now, I had to back up a little bit and give you some background around how I got to this point in my career. So I was at a company that I really liked in the beginning, and I started off as a contractor. I felt that I was treated fairly. I was working a decent number of hours, but they wanted to hold off from getting paying people time and a half, so everyone was working their typical 40 hours per week. Eventually, they ended up offering me a full-time job, and I was thrilled since I really loved the company. But about halfway through this process or halfway through this job, I ended up finding with this project that it started gearing into a more toxic environment. So in the very beginning when I started, we were just starting off hiring more people for a really large project. And as things took a turn for the worse and things weren't really going in the direction that they wanted, the company and the other consultants that they were paying were not treated very fairly. So I'm talking to the point where they wanted you in seats just for visibility from, I think it was 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, and they wanted you there until 7 p.m. And that was just to show visibility that things were getting tested, things were getting done, even if there wasn't necessarily work to be done. We would typically get calls on the weekends saying, hey, this isn't working, we want you to test it, or whatever the case may be, just to try to not have to push back the project deadlines. And the thing that was really painful or really toxic for me was experiencing how upper management was treating other people. So not just the disregard for people's personal time and the ability to be able to have time to relax on the weekends. It's one thing if you're having an implementation, it's planned out and you're planning to work weekends. It happens especially with large projects, but just not knowing at any given time when someone's going to call you and say, hey, I need you to work. And these aren't people that are actually doing production support or anything like that. So we came across situations where people would have deaths in the family, and I'm saying mothers, fathers, they would pass away, and someone would leave, or another person would leave to drive that coworker to wherever it was, the hospital or the person's house, because they just experienced a major death in their family. And upper management was treating people as though that wasn't a reasonable excuse to leave the office. So once started seeing how toxic the environment was, how there was really a horrible company culture, I decided it's time to take my expertise elsewhere and start working for a company that had boundaries, that respected their employees, where I was excited to go and work and not feel like I was being taken for granted. And I worked with some recruiters at the time to try to find jobs. And lo and behold, a recruiter reached out to me and told me about a position. Now, at the time, it wasn't offering $100 per hour. I was able to negotiate up to that rate, but that's actually a story for a different YouTube video. And I ended up talking to the recruiter, and just some of the things that I heard um, were kind of red flags. I don't remember exactly what they were. There's one particular thing that I'll tell you about that was a huge red flag to me. But coming out of a toxic environment, I was looking for a company that I could really work at and enjoy my time there, really want to give my time and effort, and I wanted to get away from that toxic environment. So there were a few red flags, and I had this weird gut feeling that it just wasn't a good job or wasn't a good fit for me. And I proceeded to talk to the recruiter anyway, and we talked about setting up an interview. So I had set up an interview, or the recruiter set up an interview with the company, and I continued to do my research. I reached out to a couple of people that I knew that worked at the company and heard some, concerning feedback on that. And then also did some research on Glassdoor. Again, you have to be a little bit careful what you see on Glassdoor about companies because sometimes it's disgruntled employees, other times it's accurate. But this was really concerning. And then what really tipped me over the edge was when the recruiter called me and said they wanted to go over some information with me to try to help me prepare for the interview or see if I had any questions. And during that conversation, he told me how horrible the hiring manager was, how everybody thought he was a jerk, And this aligned with some of the things that I was hearing from old colleagues about the company culture. And so at that point, I just decided, you know what, this is a lot of money, but do I really want to spend my time and effort interviewing for a company and then getting my foot in the door with a company just to be unhappy again, or to be working for a company that's, overworking me, that feel like I'm going to have mental health issues because of the lack of work-life balance. So I ended up telling the recruiter to cancel the interview. Now, I could have taken things in a different approach. I could have gone through with the interview, which some people try to encourage me to do, but I just decided to go with my gut feeling. And what ended up happening afterwards was some of my colleagues that worked there, I found out a year later, they ended up leaving because they were really unhappy. I didn't get into the details of what it was like exactly to work for that company. But what did end up happening was I found another better opportunity. And because I had that vision of what I was looking for, um, I was able to find a company that really had the same values as me, valued work life balance, really appreciated their employees, and where I was able to learn and grow. And I ended up working at that company for several years. It was one of the best experiences and actually helped propel my agile career as well, even further than what I had already been doing. And I think this is really just a lesson for it depends on where you are in your life. At the time, I had just been married for about a year, and this company that ended up having somewhat of a, or very much a toxic culture, I spent a lot of time traveling. So I had been married for a year, but I had spent barely any time with my husband because of that travel. We were okay with that at the time because we didn't have kids, and we were trying to get further in our career, network, things like that. And I knew that we wanted to start a family about a year after I started that job, a year after I was married, and I wanted to have something that was more balanced. So if I had this opportunity with this company making close to $200,000 per year, I I don't know if I would have recognized the red flags. Hopefully I would have, but I might have just dealt with it if it was before getting married, if I was open to working longer hours or kind of just being open to find out more about the position. I really don't know. I just know where I was at that point in my life, and I wanted more of a balance. I wanted to be in a company culture that I really enjoyed because I had worked at a company that I really loved before. I spent, over 7 years there and couldn't say enough good things about the company culture. So I just made the decision to move forward and look for other opportunities. I'm really happy that I did. And I think when you're looking for different positions, you should look very closely at what the company has to offer, what you can offer that company, but what are the values that they have? What is the company culture? Is there a lot of travel involved? Do you like to travel a lot? Or is that something that you want to do less because you have a family or other obligations? So it's really going to depend on the person. But overall, I'm happy that I listened to my gut, and I'm happy that I made the decision to go with a company that was more aligned with my values. And I hope you found this video helpful. If so, feel free to share it with your friends and go ahead and hit subscribe for the next video. Thanks so much for watching.